Howdy everyone, welcome to the HexTCG channel. I'm Mokog and today we're going to be going over a brand new Hexonomics. And if you've read the title of today's stream, you know this Hexonomics is about community tools. So we're going to talk about the things initially that we have inclined. We're going to only spend a little bit of time there. And then we're going to take a look at the things that the community has brought together as tools that can be used to help make your Hex experience better. But it would only be best to go ahead and start with some of our in-client tools for understanding some of the things that we can use while deck building, for our collection, and understanding what's going on. Now, we've in previous episodes of Hexonomics, we've covered in depth what the auction house is. But I think it's a good idea to spend a little bit of time in the collection tool so that we can see and highlight a little bit of what we've got going on inside the client itself. So inside the client, we have a snazzy collection tool, and we have two panes, of course. One pane, the top pane, separates all of your cards that are available, and then your bottom pane here is everything for your deck. Now, the really nifty tools are actually here in this right pane right here. So these, I have a feel, are very underused by our newer players. And because it's very numbers, you don't necessarily know what's going on here. Initially, we're not explaining what's happening here very well. And let's go ahead and take a few moments to check and see what we've got going on. So think of this as the deck stats pane. So what this is telling you is it tells you by the shard type, whether it's artifact, blood, diamond, etc., how many cards you have that fit that resource type. And then it's giving you the average thresholds per type there. And it's actually really handy when you're doing draft decks because it gives you an understanding of how you should split the resources that you're dedicating for a deck. And so that's why this is under the resource tab, because it's supposed to give you an idea about how you'll want to lay your resources. The ratios is also another fantastic one. It's in the third tab of this pane, or the second tab of this pane here. And it tells you stuff like how many artifacts, actions, constants, quick actions, resources, troops. This type, and especially these ratios. So if you're a deck builder, this is actually a really powerful pane for you to utilize because it helps you keep track of what's going on. So we see in this case we have as many resources as we have troops, and that's generally you want to have the ability to play low cost sorts of decks. And so that gives you an idea that this is definitely a very aggro sort of deck. Not necessarily the lowest number of resources in the deck, but it's also got some mid-range stuff as well. And that comes into play when you start looking at costs. So this is where you're looking at your cards from your 0 count through each of your cost counts on the way through, telling you how many you have at what counts and at what thresholds. It's very much about the stats of a deck here. And then on top of that, we have a test draw function. This allows you to, before you go into games, if you just want to see how your deck is drawing, and it gives you an understanding of exactly what you might be able to expect. Now, some things about what's going on with here, this is very much kind of a small testing scenario. So you'll see a lot of fun stuff here. You can do new hands. You can check and see what your mulligans are. Now, this is based on PvP specifically, so you're not going to get, if you want to replicate the PvE mulligan, you would do, you check your first hand, you'd hit a new hand again for PvE, and then mulligan from that point out to see what's going on. And then you can also check and see what your deck might draw through there. It's a nifty tool. It keeps track of what's going on here with the deck size. It's great for doing mock games in your head. Now, one of the other fun parts is the deck validation summary pane. Now, this is this upper tab right here. Whenever your deck is ready for PvP, this check mark will turn green. Now, for PvE, it does not turn green because the validation is set specifically for PvP. So whenever you're running PvE cards, in this case like the Crowd Roars, it's not going to give you a full green check mark because it's not passing the PvE and PvP validations. But as we can see, our deck is valid for PvE. And so this right here is a very underutilized part of the pane. Most folks only focus here on the champion, and they kind of ignore these stats here. Mostly because you're looking to build something very specific at any particular point, or you're pulling a deck and then you're building a deck that you've got a list from. And that's what our other community tools are for, being able to do that. But understanding some of these tools in client really helps you for when you're wanting to create stuff for out of client. So one of the things I'd really like to start featuring here on Hexonomics, and we're going to run through a great list of them today of the existing as of today community tools that I personally rely the most on for my Hex experience. So we're going to find ourselves heading out to the web here pretty quick as we make sure that we are in the right area and that we are not going to the wrong spots here. So one of the very first tools that you want to make use of in Hex is the actual community website itself. So this is www.hextcg.com. For our other folks, the Gameforge site is also fantastic, but it is pretty good idea to just call this the mothership of Hex, where you're going to be getting your weekly updates, all of the cool stuff, and plus, this is the site that you should direct your friends to for initially looking at Hex, and then direct them to Steam. But direct them here first. It's a much shorter URL to get here. And this is where you're going to find fantastic articles, great stuff, like Hooglin just released his Uzu deck drill down. That's amazing. The Primal Dawn FAQ is super awesome for our rules folks. Really great stuff is in here. Now, in addition to that, though, we also have our forums being a fantastic spot for all of our great Hex needs, all of us coming together. It's broken down into a lot of fantastic subforums. You can do everything from trading to just straight conversation, asking questions. This is the place to go. But what it really does is it takes me to one of my favorite tools to use in Hex, and that's actually Hex Collector. Now, Hex Collection was initially introduced by Dinotropia, and it was put together by a team that includes Celadine and a few other API programmers. And it's a out-of-client, Excel-based, spreadsheet-based tool for checking and seeing all of the different things that are in-game. It takes a little bit of setup, and you can't be afraid to jump into the system files of Hex to utilize this. But it's a fantastic tool. It's even got a video by Dinotropia that actually helps explain how you do that initial setup. And then once you get it up and going, it's been really fantastic so far. The one thing that we'll want to make mention on here is that every time that we're getting a dramatic client update, the API generally needs an update in addition to that, so there is some lag time between that. Now, if you don't happen to be a spreadsheet nut like I am, the next best thing is TCG Browser. So TCG Browser, they did things for like the World of Warcraft TCG. They jumped on Hex, and they've been doing a fantastic service for the community where you can log in, you can build decks within this tool. It's got all of the cards that are available in the client, whether they are PvP or they happen to be presently available. Anything that is in the client is here. It's a great discovery tool. You can see mercenaries, clients, free cards, tokens. It's a great way to learn the cards on the fly, and especially if you happen to be mobile and just like on your tablet or something. This is a great place that if you can't be in the client, to take a look at the cool stuff that's in the client. In addition, this also happens to have its own API, and that's one of the great things about the developments working with our community is that we have quite a few API developers that are making it easy so that you don't have to always manually input your material. And what that allows you to do is to manage your collection, use various services like there's a trading post service right here where you can check and see what people have going up for trade. You do have to log in for that feature, of course. But you can check out equipment and talents. You can see what decks and the like are going up here. A lot of fantastic things are shared through this site, and it is an amazing site for many purposes, and they've been a stellar force for the community here, and I can't recommend it enough. Now, once you see all the cards, you might notice that when you're looking through some of these, you're getting in, you're like, where's all this price stuff coming from? How do they know exactly what it is in platinum and gold and all that? Well, Gameforge has made available the auction house data, and Hex TCG Browser, as well as the next place we're going to look at, has been taking this material over time, and they've made it available for the community. And one of my favorite ones to use for that is Hex Price. So Hex Price has a fantastic setup to where you can see the daily changes of what's happening with winners and losers, cards that have made a big splash either going up or going down, things that are being popular, that's kind of like the volumes of trades and the like being sold, things that have been viewed the most on the site, People are looking for those alternate art extinctions to see kind of how they're priced, that kind of stuff. And then also their best approximation of what the exchange rate currently is. This fluctuates wildly, but it's a good information source to start off with. And what's really great is that you can do fantastic search functionality. So let's say you want to check and see what kind of vampires were currently available here. We want to see, let's see. There we go. So if you want to see the vampires that are available, we can go take a look at the Vampire Princess Alternate Art. And we get some great information, the stuff that's been happening most recently, the last 7 days, what's happening kind of overall. Just a great set of basic graphs and tools for doing that, and you can do it for quite a few different cards. And you get to check all of these fun things out. It's a fantastic price check tool. It's very good at using to help validate your trades. If you want to take a look and see maybe something could be going on in the market for a particular card, that's one of the great aspects here. You can check and see what happens to cards over time. That's one of the fun things I like to double check, is once you start expanding out the time horizon and seeing how the market itself just fluctuates a little bit. Where in some cases, Vampire Kings used to be really low, and sometimes they can get really high. Sometimes they even spike. You gotta love that spike over here early in March. But if you want to take a look at a smaller side, you can take a look at it on a much more day-by-day basis. You'll see all of that cool stuff going on. You'll see the volumes for each of those days. It's one of the things that has placed Hex Price well within my my search history, because you always want to check and see what cards are going for before you're listing them on the auction house to see if it's worth your time and energy. It's a great place to start that off. But once you've priced out your cards, you also got to know what you want to build, right? And that's where Hex Meta comes in. Hex Meta is a fantastic tool where you can check out decks, you can see what's going on with various leaderboards that they put together with their API, you can see what they've got going on with their limited ladder, you can even look and see if you're participating, what's going on there. And we find out that I need to do much better in my win ratios. We've gotten a lot lower since people have started participating. But if you want to look up, I believe it's Jadim Jedi. You can see Jadim Jedi is doing significantly better by comparison. So if you ever want to check and see what someone's player is, how someone is doing in limited at this point, you can check it out here on Hex Meta until we actually have ladder in the client itself. You can see what the leaderboards are doing for constructed as well. So you can see the players here are doing really well, what decks are happening as well. So you can export someone's deck. You'll see that a lot of JJ's stuff has been Boris Blastforge and Gauntlet. And if you want to see what one of those decks was for one of his wins, you kick it out here, and you can see all of this good stuff as well. All sorts of fantastic uses. You get all your basic deck information. It is an amazing tool, and this data is actually also coming from GameForge. All of the Gauntlet and in-game tournament data, as well as the 5 shards data, is being funneled into this website, so you get a really good idea of what is happening with various decks. Now, these are some of the really great spot tools that you may want. So it's like, oh, I need to know a price. Oh, I want to know what a deck is doing well. Oh, I want to build with cards outside of the client because I can't just be signed on right now. So those are small. Those are some specific needs, but sometimes you also need some forms of aggregation. And one of the greatest aggregations we have is actually the Hex Reddit. And this is a huge shout out to King Gabriel and the mods here on Hex Reddit and all the folks who are participating, because this is an amazing spot for finding out what's going on in the community outside of the forums themselves. People shouting out all sorts of cool stuff, Whether it is a new video that put out by Havoc or a new podcast by Threshold, someone, if you need help with an Evo Gauntlet, if you need some advice, don't hesitate to reach out. Our community is fantastic on all of our platforms. But, we also have really great community sites, and these community sites do fantastic articles like Hex Primal. Hex Primal is they're very much fans of doing guides, and they do that style of article writing. So, like one of the first ones to do a Hierophant type of guide. They do some Market Watch stuff at the end of every one of the months. Just really interesting stuff here and there. Fairly active guys, much more about doing guides. Now, then we also have the 5 Shards folks. Now, 5 Shards is much more of they try to get weekly to daily articles. This is where we also feature a lot of our Hexonomics stuff once it's hit YouTube. And the great thing about Hexonomics and 5 Shards and all of these fun parts related to this part of the community, 5 Shards has built itself as a pillar side of the community, and they've got everything from deck articles to the stuff that we do here to podcasts, kind of a jack of all trades, and plus they also host one of the bigger community competitive tournaments as well. But that's really not also that's there. We've got websites, we've got tools. Well, we've also got some fantastic YouTube channels that are not even on any of these. And they're not even folks who are on Twitch. One of the big ones is Serious Business. He has done a lot of fantastic Hex-based content, and with that smooth, sultry voice.
Games are serious business.
Because they are serious business. He has been a Hex content creator for a very long time and deserves some major shout-outs. A lot of good how-to stuff, a lot of good new player stuff. If you have not found him yet, be sure that you go increase his sub count, because he is doing amazing things for the community, and he is a great resource. And, if you happen to not be able to catch Hexonomics, then here on the main channel or on formerly on my channel, you can also pick it up here on YouTube as well, where we will periodically feature all sorts of fun things, primarily Hexonomics, but we have done a lot of fun content, and we'll also be doing some lore content here pretty soon. And that's really the big part, is that Hex's tools that we utilize are not just going to be in-game, and it's part of the nature of being a digital-only TCG. Since we don't have a physical space that we all come together, we're all coming into these spaces of the mind, meeting together, creating sites, meeting in chat, trading ideas on forums and Reddit, and coming together as these collectives. And it's one of the fantastic parts about Hex and our community, is that everything that I've showed you so far has no paywall. All of this is freely available for every member of the community to go forward and join. Even you'll find some ads here. Please don't use ad blocker on those folks. It helps make sure to pay the rent for the servers and all that kind of stuff. The important part is that it's being done free for the community, and it is absolutely crucial to being able to know what's going on in a Hex economy, is having knowledge about what people are doing. And I can't stress it enough that the work being done by the community itself is nearly unparalleled, especially for a game of our size, and I can't wait till we bring more folks in and we can do more and better as we grow and become more mature as a community. So that's what we've got for today's Hexonomics, an inspiring message of uplifting hope and greatness. If there's anyone that I missed, please, our wonderful community manager would love to have a shout out. Go ahead and send an email to Dinotropia. In fact, he has his contact information put there on one of the more recent articles. If you find someone doing something awesome in Hex, or a new community content creator that we haven't found yet, go ahead and give them a shout out. If you see something awesome, go ahead and let people know awesomeness is occurring. And for everyone who is catching this on YouTube, thank you for watching. We're going to move into our Q&A as well as the giveaway.